After traveling across 6 African countries, Ghana, Mali, Botswana, Tanzania, Zanzibar, and Egypt, I should have felt closer to the end. Instead, I felt like I'd only just opened the first door. My name is Danielle Efua Carter, and 2 months ago, I received a letter from my grandfather. A man I thought I knew. A man who passed away quietly, without fanfare or warning, only to leave behind a trail of hidden messages, maps, and a box that couldn't be opened without traveling halfway around the world. That journey ended in Alexandria. At least, that's what I thought. But in the letter I found inside the ancient library, my grandfather told me I had one final destination. The place where truth was buried. You'll find what I left where the tides kiss the bones of history, he wrote. That line haunted me. It still does. Because even now, I don't think I was prepared for what I found next. I landed in Saint Lucia just before noon. The sky was blindingly blue, but I couldn't enjoy it. My body was tired. My mind, even more so. Each clue I followed answered one question and opened 3 more. I no longer felt like I was solving a puzzle. I felt like I was chasing ghosts. There was a man waiting at the airport holding a handwritten sign. Danielle Carter. He introduced himself as Isaac. He was in his early 60s, weathered but gentle-looking, with deep brown skin and gray streaks in his beard. He didn't smile when he saw me, but there was recognition in his eyes. As if I was someone he'd already met in a dream he couldn't explain. He drove me in an old pickup truck, neither of us saying much. The further we went, the more the roads disappeared into jungle and cliffside views. There was no signal. No signs. Just trees and mist. Finally, he stopped in front of a crumbling stone chapel perched above the ocean. Moss covered the roof. The windows were broken, vines spilling through the arches. It was beautiful and haunting all at once. He used to come here, Isaac said quietly. Back when he still believed in what he was protecting. I didn't ask what that meant. Not yet. Inside, the chapel was cool and still. The only sound was the waves crashing far below. A beam of light cut through a hole in the ceiling and landed on a cracked stone altar. Isaac handed me a folded piece of paper. He said to give you this only when you reach this place. I opened it slowly. Efua. This is where it ends. The key is here, buried in what they tried to erase. Find it, and the truth I never had the courage to face becomes yours to carry. But once you open it, there's no going back. He'd drawn a map on the back, just a rough sketch of the chapel, with an X marked near the altar. I knelt beside the stone slab, tracing my fingers along the surface. There was a small crack near one edge. With Isaac's help and a crowbar he'd brought along, I pried it open. The sound it made was like bones being moved. Beneath it was a metal box, sealed tight, but with no lock. Just a round impression at the top. It was the exact shape of the obsidian stone I'd carried with me from Kilimanjaro. My hands shook as I placed it into the indent. There was a faint glow. A warmth. Then a click. The box opened. Inside were 2 things. A stack of sealed letters, bound in string. And a small leather journal, old and water-stained. I picked up the journal first. The cover was worn smooth, but inside, the handwriting was unmistakably his. The first page read. I was not born a Carter. I was made into one. To protect her. To protect you. But the truth is waiting now. You have the key. Go home. Open the box I buried in Accra. I stared at the page for a long time, barely breathing. Go home? Back to Accra? There was another box. I flipped to the back of the journal. The final entry was dated almost 24 years ago. The ink was shaky, rushed. If you're reading this, then I am gone. But the lie is still breathing. And someone else knows you're getting close. I looked at Isaac, suddenly cold despite the Caribbean heat. Do you know what this means? I asked. He nodded, and for the first time, his face showed something close to grief. He told me he had to leave someone behind. Said it was the only way to save what mattered. What was in the original box? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a photo. I didn't even see where he'd pulled it from. It was a picture of me. A child, maybe 4 years old. Playing in my grandfather's backyard, holding a red toy airplane. My face was turned toward the camera, mid-laugh. But that wasn't the part that stopped my heart. In the background, nearly hidden by the trees, was a man. Standing. Watching. Not my grandfather. Not any relative I recognized. But familiar, all the same. I had seen him before. In the shadows near the mosque in Mali. In the tree line in Botswana. In the reflection in the train window I rode alone in Cairo. He wasn't imagined. He was real. And he had been following me from the beginning. Isaac watched my reaction and placed a firm hand on my shoulder. You should go. Before he gets ahead of you. That night, I stayed in a guest house near the edge of the coast. I didn't turn the lights off. I sat with the journal open on my lap, trying to piece together the story in the margins. There were things written in a can. Some in French. Names crossed out. A line repeated more than once. They made me erase myself. The next morning, I boarded a flight back to Accra. Every part of me knew I was heading into the final part of the journey. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found waiting there. Kwame Carter had owned a small house near the edge of the city, close to where I had first arrived when this journey began. I returned there, the air somehow heavier now. The key still hung inside, behind the kitchen cabinet, just like the old man in the woodshop told me it would. But now, I had something I hadn't before. The journal. A line in it led me to the garden. He'd written. Under the tree that never bore fruit, I buried everything I couldn't say aloud. In the yard stood a crooked mango tree. According to Isaac, it hadn't grown fruit in over 20 years. I borrowed a shovel from the neighbor and started digging at the base. Less than 2 feet down, my fingers hit wood. I cleared away the dirt. Another box. This one, smaller than the others. Black. Bound in iron trim, with no opening mechanism on the outside. Just the same symbol as before, 3 jagged lines through a circle. I lifted it out and sat back. Whatever was inside this one, my grandfather had buried it in the place where he lived his final years. Not in a secret ruin, not behind a veil of riddles, but here. In a yard full of silence. I carried it inside. Placed it on the table. Then I waited. I waited for the moment to feel right. I waited for something inside me to give me permission to open it. And then. There was a knock at the door. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. I froze. The hairs on my neck lifted. I stepped to the window, heart pounding, and looked out. No one. I checked again. No footsteps in the dirt. No shadows. But when I turned back to the box, the seal was gone. Just a clean, black surface where the emblem had been. And the lid? It was now cracked open. Just slightly. As if whatever had been sealed inside had finally decided it was time to come out. After the box cracked open on the table, I just stared at it. My breath held. My heartbeat was in my ears. There were no footsteps. No wind. Just a silence that made the whole room feel like it was holding its breath with me. I stepped closer. The lid had only moved half an inch, but it was enough to know, whatever seal had held it shut for decades was gone now. I placed both hands on the surface. It was ice cold. I lifted the lid. Inside was a stack of documents, yellowed by time, wrapped in a weathered cloth. Beneath that, a second, smaller box. This one was made of some kind of stone, obsidian again, but carved smoother than the piece I'd carried across continents. I left it for last. First, the documents. I opened the cloth and found birth records. Citizenship forms. But the names didn't make sense. Not at first. The top page was for someone named Kwame Bediako, born in Ghana in 1943. That was my grandfather's real name. But the next page was dated in the 1960s, a legal name change. Kwame Bediako became Kwame Carter. The signature on the form was shaky, as if whoever signed it was trying not to cry. There were more papers, all tied together in a folder marked, "For the child not born yet. Protect her from who I used to be." I reached for the stone box next. The obsidian was smooth to the touch, almost like glass. No lock. No seal. I lifted the lid. Inside was a single photograph. And beneath it, a tape. An old audio cassette, labeled only with one word. Confession. I pulled out the photo and stared at it. It was my mother. She was younger, a teenager, standing with two men. One of them was my grandfather. The other? I didn't recognize. But he had my eyes. Behind them was a banner, the African National Liberation Front. It hit me like a wave. I remembered a line from the journal. Scratched out, but still faint. They made me erase myself. The man in the picture was not just someone my grandfather knew. He was his brother. Or maybe something closer. The truth, I could feel it now, wasn't just about a box. It was about a life rewritten. I pulled out a dusty cassette player from the old cupboard under the kitchen sink, my grandfather's, still there after all these years. I inserted the tape and pressed play. There was static. Then his voice. Softer than I'd ever heard it. Not the voice of the man who raised me. The voice of someone breaking. If you are hearing this, I am dead. Or I have failed. Or both. My name is Kwame Bediako. But the world you know me in, the safe world, called me Carter. I changed it after the war. After what we did. What we buried. What we ran from. The tape hissed. I was part of something. Not evil. Not at first. But power turns good men to ghosts. We thought we were fighting for freedom. But we became something else. When I left, I didn't just flee a country. I fled my own blood. The man in the photo with me, he's your father's father. He died in a prison that no one ever admitted existed. Because he asked questions. I sat still. Frozen. My chest ached. My family, my name, was built on lies my grandfather buried so deep, they reached across continents. But he hadn't erased them. He'd preserved them. Carefully. Painfully. For me. Efua, you were never supposed to carry this weight. But now that you do, you deserve to know what the box truly holds. It's not a key. It's a compass. It will point you toward the people still alive. The ones who never stopped looking. They followed me. They followed you. You've seen them. If they take the box, they'll rewrite history again. And no one will remember who we really were. Hide it. Or burn it. Or open the final folder and share it with the world. But choose quickly. Because if they know you've opened it. The tape stopped. Just like that. Silence. I sat there in the fading light of late afternoon, the tape still spinning in the player, clicking softly as it reached its end. Everything in the room felt heavier now. Like the air had turned to stone. I picked up the final folder. Inside were names. Photos. Documents stamped with red XS. Lists of activists, professors, students, all silenced during Ghana's post-independence purges. Some had died in prison. Some had disappeared. And some were still missing. My grandfather had collected proof. Proof of things governments had denied ever happened. Proof of people they'd erased. And he had left it to me. The box wasn't just a mystery. It was a vault of truth. And it made me a target. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed on the floor, box by my side, documents spread around me. I thought about the man in the photo watching me as a child. How long had he been following me? Was he protecting me? Or waiting for me to lead him to the truth? By morning, I had made my decision. I scanned every document. Every name. Every photo. And then I packed everything into a waterproof duffel bag and left the house. I took only what mattered. The cassette. The journal. The obsidian compass. The rest? I hid it. Somewhere only I could find. As I rode in a taxi toward the airport, I watched every car behind us. Every man standing too long on a corner. Every set of eyes. I had answers now. But with them came something deeper than fear. Responsibility. My grandfather died protecting the truth. And now I had to decide what to do with it. Do I share it? Do I expose the lies? Or do I keep running, like he did? All I know is this. The box is open. The truth is alive. And someone, somewhere, is already coming for me.